Welcome to On the Vineyard, a 10-minute weekly wrap-up of news from the Vineyard Gazette Media Group on Martha's Vineyard. I'm publisher Monica Brady-Meyerov. We're so glad you're here. On the Vineyard is sponsored by Martha's Vineyard Bank. It's been a beautiful June. Some days have felt like July, they've been so warm. And the weather is attracting a lot of early season tourists.
Walk your bike on the sidewalk, please. Thank you. When you get to Church Street, you can ride your bike down there.
Biking on the sidewalk is never a good idea, no matter where you are. It could lead to an accident. There's news from the hospital that they'll address the need for urgent care.
You know, we've had some similar things. Island Healthcare has done something similar to this. Martha's Vineyard Medical has done similar to this. But to have the biggest healthcare provider on the island doing this has got a lot of people excited.
More on that story in a moment. This past week, the Vineyard had its third $1 million lottery winner. What are the chances? A young man visiting from Colorado won $4 million from a ticket he purchased at a convenience store in Edgartown. A $15 million ticket was sold at the Oak Bluffs VFW this spring, and a $1 million ticket was sold at Woodland Grill just a week later. Can somebody do the math for me of the likelihood of an island with 20,000 year-round residents having 3 winning lottery tickets of $1 million or more? That's the sound of the historic press in the Vineyard Gazette offices in Edgartown printing the paper. That means it's time to go upstairs to the newsroom and check in with Bill Evell, the editor-in-chief, and the reporters on this week's news.
This week, the hospital announced a new initiative. This will be a joint express care and tick clinic, 2 things we vitally need on the island. Ethan Genter sat down with Claire Seguin to talk about the new initiative. Ethan?
Hey, Bill. Yeah, so the hospital launched this new effort on Monday. And the idea here is, say you don't have a primary care doctor at the hospital or anywhere else, you can go in for some of the more minor ailments, respiratory, colds, things like that, as well as for tick care. And, we have this shortage of physicians here on the island, so a lot of people don't have primary care. Last year, I believe it was the hospital waiting list was a little over 1,000 people. So this is a way to sort of bridge that gap for people who need care but don't want to go to the ER.
Yeah, as you said, we have a shortage of primary care, but we have a huge abundance of ticks and tick-borne diseases. So this is a great combination. So people supposedly can now get quicker access to tick issues.
Yeah, the idea is you don't have to go to the ER every time you get a tick bite or something like that. A lot of people obviously have become very concerned about ticks, and so the hospital has said they're hoping that this can be a sort of more nuanced treatment. You know, after you get diagnosed with Lyme or alpha-gal or something like that, they can continue to care, continue to kind of walk through the process in different ways where an ER might not be able to handle something like that.
And is this intended to be by appointment only or walk-in, or anybody can do it?
Yeah, so people who are maybe more familiar with urgent care on the mainland, this is slightly different. You do have to make an appointment here, but the idea is that it's either same day or the next day. The hospital has said they're aiming for 24 hours to get you in here. We've had some similar things. Island Healthcare has done something similar to this. Martha's Vineyard Medical has done similar to this, but to have the biggest healthcare provider on the island doing this has got a lot of people excited.
Yeah, and right now it's at the hospital, but your story you talked about that it will eventually move to the location in West Tisbury.
Yeah, the hospital bought a place on Indian Hill Road, I believe that was last fall, and they're still working on that with the DPH. There's a lot of, as you can imagine, red tape to try and get a medical facility open. So right now it's going to be operating out of the hospital, but the idea is that eventually it goes over there.
All right. Thanks so much, Ethan.
Thank you, Bill.
Turning now to Louisa Huffstadter, who got the chance to sit down with James Lapine. He recently won the Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Theater. And what was so awesome for all of us in the newsroom is that James came to the newsroom for the interview, and he was so pumped to be here. I was pretty psyched.
Yes, it was wonderful to see how much he enjoyed visiting the Gazette, because as he said, seeing a room full of writers was something he's not used to.
Yeah, he's used to working
he
alone.
Works alone in his office, which I'm sure is a fine way to get things done. But we do it differently here, and we enjoyed having him. And I always love talking with James Lapine. This is our 3rd conversation over the past 10 years, wow. And I'm looking forward to interviewing him again. I hope when his memoir comes out in 2028.
And just to let the listeners know. So James is a longtime seasonal resident of Edgartown, and he is just a titan, as the award says, in the theater.
He did not start out intending to be a titan in the theater, and he still seems a little bit bemused by the fact that he is. He was a photographer and a graphic designer working for Yale University when he was sort of lured into directing a play more or less as a lark, and wound up winning an off-Broadway Obie Award for it, and then just kept moving on.
How many Tony Awards has he won by now?
I think several shelves worth, including this most recent. The Lifetime Achievement Award in the theater is not given out every year. Some years people don't get it, some years multiple people get it. This year he was alongside one of his old-time collaborators, the producer Andre Bishop, and also the legend of lighting Jules Fisher. And some very big names have been awarded this in the past. But for James, it's just, as he said, it's hard to even think of what he does as work. He said it's really play in a lot of ways, and he feels like a very lucky person.
Yeah, who is going to keep writing stuff. He said he's involved already with things, right?
He's always involved with things, and fortunately, he's in a place where he can just do the things that he's interested in. So, for instance, in the next Broadway season in New York, he will be directing the play by Edward Albee that won the 2002 Tony for Best Play, The Goat, or Who is Sylvia, which James Lapine had wanted to direct the first time around. It had been given by the playwright, but it just never happened. So he gets to do that. And he and his wife, Sarah Kernigan, who's really the reason that he's in Edgartown every summer. Her family is generational here. And so the two of them, and she is a multiple Academy Award-winning filmmaker and screenwriter, and a writer who has worked with James before. They did the film Impromptu, for instance. And they're working on a musical with the very famous composer Alan Menken, just to name one, Aladdin, and many, many other shows with Disney and many, many awards. And also with Nell Benjamin, who wrote the book for Legally Blonde, the musical, and is also a lyricist. And James will direct, and it's a Nancy Drew musical. And it's called Nancy Drew and the Secret of Spotlight Manor, I believe. And he said to me that it's going to have its first production next spring at the Goodspeed Opera House in Connecticut. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that comes through, because it sounds like a lot of fun. And in fact, Sarah Kernigan had already written something about Nancy Drew when a producer came to James Lapine with the idea. And he said, actually, I'm a Hardy Boys man. But in the next room is someone who knows all there is to know about Nancy Drew. So we have that to look forward to.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Louisa. And congratulations, James, and thanks so much for coming by the office. It was a real thrill for all of us.
You can read more on these stories and all the news for free at vineyardgazette.com. This weekend, we celebrate Juneteenth. For the 5th year in a row, the Gazette has compiled a Juneteenth Jubilee Program of Events guide free for visitors. And there are more than 20 events over the next few days in celebration of Juneteenth. Of course, I'm going to recommend the panel I'm moderating on Friday called Freedom at 250, From Revolution to Juneteenth, Who Was America For? We have two amazing guests. Reggie Brown is a commissioner on the U.S. 250 Commission, and Kyle Williams is a lifelong educator and social justice advocate. Join us Friday at 3:30 at Union Chapel. And then on Sunday, you can enjoy a delicious and musical gospel brunch at the Edgartown Yacht Club. Tickets are still available. Now, if you're a Jaws fan, it's Amity Homecoming Weekend at the Martha's Vineyard Museum. I know this is now 51 years since the release of the historic movie, but Jaws fans are still attracted to the island to see where it all happened. This weekend, the museum has lots of speakers, book signings, and events. And the Gazette has put together a Jaws sunset sail on the Black Dog's Alabama schooner Sunday night. Join us. The beauty of the vineyard can be seen in so many places, including the rock walls that are predominantly in Chilmark. Polly Hill, the horticulturalist who died at the age of 100 in 2007, spoke to Lindsay Lee about how the rock walls came about.
The farmers who moved in had to clear their fields in order to plow them and not hit rocks, so they built walls or they threw them up in a pile to get rid of them. And so I have both the walls and a pile of rocks left. And from this mess of stuff, I selected steps and ornaments and seats and whatever I could do to use up the rock pile. I love every rock. I think they're perhaps more beautiful than any plant I've planted. They give a stability and a rightness to the whole place.
Thank you to the Martha's Vineyard Museum for sharing this audio. Our theme music is from island composer and musician Michael Hayden. If you like the show, please follow us so you won't miss an episode. And also follow us on Instagram at On the Vineyard Podcast. And tell a friend who loves the vineyard. And thanks to our sponsor, Martha's Vineyard Bank, committed to supporting the Martha's Vineyard and Falmouth communities through their charitable foundation and local partnerships. Last year, the bank gave $10,000 to the Falmouth Housing Trust to expand access to affordable housing. Martha's Vineyard Bank, your goals, our guidance. Learn more at mvbank.com. I'm Monica Brady-Myrov. Thanks for joining us on The Vineyard. Talk to you next week.